Entering the Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience. Welcome to a crossover episode of the DFS Edge and the Pat Mayo Experience, brought to you by Jägermeister. Give your beer a real shot this summer with an ice cold shot. A Jägermeister. Sounds delicious. Today, we're going to finish off talking about the back end of running backs in the first round by average draft position and get in to the second round in average draft position. If you've missed any of the previous shows or future shows that we have not recorded yet, hit the index of this video and give the episode a like. And in the podcast, you can find it there as well to find out all of the episodes. I'm joined by Adam Kaufman and Adam Levitan, who is the host of the DFS Edge and the real star of the show. Levy, what's going on, my man?
Oh, man, you just have me just wanting to say Jaeger shot. You know what I mean? The way that you say it just makes me want to take a shot of Jaeger and have a nice afternoon. It's great to be here with you boys. Obviously, two professional broadcasters and me, but I think the second round, which we're going to talk about today, of season-long drafts is where things start to get interesting. It's really close between a lot of the first-round guys. I think a lot of drafts are going to be won second, third, fourth, fifth round, and I feel like that's the case a lot of years. You know, you're kind of forced into your first-round pick a lot of times just based on projections and volume and stuff like that. But in the second, third, fourth round, you can start to get a little bit more feel and kind of swing for the fences on some of the guys that you want more.
Mayo, I didn't know if you were offering a time machine there. You know, any shows that you missed or future shows that we haven't recorded yet, people can dive right in, right? There's so much to cover.
Well, yeah, I mean, the great part, I feel like the only reason that I have the job that I have right now is because I provide handy links and descriptions of things, and people have no issues finding any of the some people like hide all their content. I just throw it out in people's faces, and then they get sick of it, and then they get turned off. But I feel like this is the very easy way to do it.
We couldn't begin to get tired of you, my friend, because we're going to be spending a lot of time here with you. But like both of you have said, we're going to, in particular, this show highlight the back end of that first round into the second round. Guys, we've talked extensively about on the first show. You should check it out. Todd Gurley, Lev Bell, David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Brown, Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, and DeAndre Hopkins, too. But where we sort of left off with the last show, guys, and May, I'll start with you on this one. Back-end running backs. So, again, you're looking at 9 out of 12, at least based on average ADP that's out there. That's a little redundant, but average draft position, guys that people should be thinking about when they get toward the tail end of that first round. You have Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette. They're all kind of closely packaged together. How do you distinguish between those three guys?
I don't really. I can't envision myself really ending up with any of these guys. It's probably Melvin Gordon for me just because of the expected touchdown upside that comes along with the Chargers, playing in a division where the defenses appear to be getting worse, like Kansas City really mortgaged their defense for an offense. Denver's is going to be fine. Oakland, who knows? They have John Gruden coaching them. I just assume they're going to be terrible. And that offense is pretty good, but like, the way that I look at it, you have those running backs all clustered together. And yeah, Kareem Hunt is, he's pretty good. Leonard Fournette, he's all right. Although when you took Leonard Fournette out of the Jags offense last year and inserted Corey Grant or TJ Yeldon or Chris Ivory, there was no real discernible difference between productivity. He's just a bulk volume guy. I have him kind of paired with Ezekiel Elliott when it comes to that. And I think that Zeke is closer to this tier than he is to the upper tier, unlike many people tend to think. So I think this is a pure receiver spot for me. If Beckham's still there, which he should be at number 11, give me him. Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Keenan Allen, they're all still available. I think I'd rather take those guys instead.
Levy, you feel the same way?
Yeah, I actually do. I think people have kind of confused themselves or talked themselves into thinking that Kareem Hunt has this 3-down plus goal line role, the same role that DJ or Le'Veon or Todd Gurley has, or even like we saw Kenyon Drake have down the stretch last year for a bit. Like, these roles are so hard to come by. Kareem Hunt does not have that role. He often does not play when the Chiefs get behind. He often does not play in 2-minute drill. He often does not play in 3rd and long. So Kareem Hunt scares me a little bit. I do think that Chiefs offense is going to be awesome. And as Mayo alluded to, defense is going to be really bad, which should lead to some shootouts and some really big games. But yeah, I think it's plenty safe to go Michael Thomas, to go Julio Jones, to go Keenan in this spot. Leonard Fournette, to me, was just an egregious reach by the Jaguars when they took him 4th overall a couple years ago. He has not been extremely efficient. A lot of his, if you just look at straight yards per carry, he looks good because he had some absurdly long touchdown runs, like a few like 60 balls last year, which were just crazy. I think a better stat that you can look at other than that is like average. If you take away carries over 10 yards, I know people say, oh, you can't do that, but Leonard Fournette is not likely to break those all that often. So yeah, I think Fournette and Hunt would be scary to me. Dalvin Cook and Melvin Gordon would be more interesting for touchdown upside. And also the Chargers have talked up Melvin Gordon in the past game since they lost Hunter Henry and maybe replacing him with like the corpse of Antonio Gates or something like that. I think there could be more room for Melvin Gordon to catch more passes.
Yeah,
well, you know the other thing. Go ahead.
One second. The only hesitation with Melvin Gordon is I'm not completely convinced that he's all that good, but he's going to get that volume and he's going to be involved in the passing game. However, Austin Eckler started to scare me towards the end of last season before he dealt with that hand injury, that if they are trying to replace targets in the passing game, maybe the corpse of Antonio Gates isn't the issue. Maybe they can start running Eckler out and going some big packages with, Terrell Williams out there. You can have Keenan Allen. You can have whoever else they want to throw out in the receiving game, but have Eckler on the field as another extension of the passing game instead of Melvin Gordon. Now, I don't think that's going to be a thing that's prevalent, but it's something that I'm just watching out for on the outset. If we have to make cases against these guys, I think that's one knock on Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, you were a lot nicer to Melvin Gordon out of the Super Bowl. I just want to tell you that.
Well, he's Melvin Gordon the third now, as I discussed with Melvin Gordon.
Extensively.
He showed me his social insurance number. He shouldn't have done that.
Had to, committed to memory and robbed his bank account. Levy, what were you going to say?
Wait, you have Melvin Gordon's social security number? Is that what you said?
Hey, he showed me because I was like, "Are you really?" Because I was giving him heat about like changing to Melvin Gordon the third. I was like, "Are you actually the third?" He's like, "Yeah, check it out." He flipped open his wallet, and just boom, there it is.
Who actually carries around their social security card, by the way? Is that a common thing? I don't even know where mine is.
Listen, when you're MG3, you do whatever you want.
He probably didn't know you were a Canadian and a threat to the state.
Listen, as a Canadian, I have a bad memory because I drink too much, so I don't remember.
Oh, God. Yeah, the Austin Eckler stuff is interesting. And Melvin Gordon has certainly been wildly inefficient. And yeah, as Mayo said, Melvin Gordon has not been good, but the Chargers have been very committed to him. Not on third down, though, where he was only in on I believe Scott Barrett tweeted out the link or the chart with running back snap percentage on 3rd and 6 and longer. And Melvin Gordon among the top backs was way at the bottom, like only 47% or something like that of 3rd and 6 or longer. So yeah, if you take Melvin Gordon, you should be prepared for him not to play on 3rd and 6 plus, but they threw to him a lot on 1st and 2nd down. So he certainly still has that role in the pass game.
Well, and so Gordon, inefficient, like you said, and Fournette, bit inconsistent. I don't think, just very quickly here to wrap up on Kareem Hunt, I don't think people really remember exactly how boom or bust he was. And I know that's as a rookie, and you're going to be featured in different different game, different matchup, different opportunity. But I mean, 148, 172, 116, 155. Those are his big games. Didn't really have any big games as a receiver, except for that first game against the Patriots when he caught a couple of touchdowns. I think he had one more receiving touchdowns the whole rest of the year. He's a guy that was remarkably inconsistent his first year. That to me that's a dicey play if you're drafting your top 10.
Yeah, and I think that's why I lean receiver. I mean, unless you can get your Le'Veon Bells and these just rock solid running backs that that are going to generate an average of 8 targets a game, that's why I always tend to lean wide receiver. Like, it didn't work out last year, great. Sometimes things don't work out. The previous 4 years, it always worked out. So like the Michael Thomases, the Odell Beckhams, the Keenan Allens even, and Julio Jones, AJ Green, all those guys, I just feel like they're safer bets.
All right, let's carry on from late first round into the second round, because, again, that's what we're doing here, and you're taking a look at 12-team leagues. So just to quickly read 13 through 24 and what we're looking at in terms of ADP. You have Dalvin Cook, a back we haven't really talked about at all. Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen. So you get into your receivers. Christian McCaffrey, he's in that same general mix along with Devontae Adams of Green Bay, Devontae Freeman right behind him from Atlanta, AJ Green, LaShawn McCoy, Jerick McKinnon, who's now with the Niners, and Mike Evans, and then Rob Gronkowski. So our first tight end of the mix, as well as we take a look at, again, ADP, just projections for round 2 as we talk here in mid-June. First off, Levy, even before we go guy by guy necessarily, is there one or two, is there something in that grouping that just stands out to you?
Devontae Adams stands out. When else can you get Aaron Rodgers, number one wide receiver at 18th pick overall? And Devontae Adams has proven to be a touchdown scorer and really gained the trust of Aaron Rodgers in a big way. So, yeah, I think that Devontae Adams certainly has a chance to lead all receivers in touchdowns this season, assuming health for Aaron Rodgers, which obviously has been a shaky bet a little bit lately. But, yeah, Devontae Adams is a baller in an unbelievable situation. When you mentioned Rob Gronkowski there, Adam, I can't believe you didn't throw in some like Patriots homer type thing. For those of you guys that
an all-world future Hall of Famer, Rob Gronkowski.
For those of you guys that don't know, Adam is like some legend in the Boston sports media, and everything he does is like a homerism. He's like a cheerleader for the Patriots and the Celtics. It's out of control. So yeah,
I think we're stretching the bounds of the definition of legend.
Oh, please!
We're looking a little bit beyond.
No, you are up there. You are ascending to the pantheon of just jerks from Boston.
Of local homers and jerks from Boston. Exactly. How about you, Mayo? Are you as wrapped up in Adams? Because that's true. You know, he's not just the number one with Jordy Nelson now gone. We are sort of, I think some people are maybe ignoring the fact that Aaron Rodgers does project to be healthy this year, and that's something that he was not remotely for the majority of last year. That should make a difference here.
To throw some cold water on this, listen, I like Davante Adams. I think he's a top 10 receiver, but the influence of Jimmy Graham shouldn't be overlooked. A lot of what we've talked about, in terms of Aaron Rodgers is, he doesn't really like his tight ends all that much. And Jimmy Graham, even looking at last year, it's not like he was super efficient, just inside the red zone. So if they got him to be a red zone only guy, maybe he starts to steal away some of the touchdowns from Davante Adams. And if we're talking about like reception based only, we still don't know what Ty Montgomery's role is going to be. Is he going to be a receiver? Is he going to be a running back? Randall Cobb is still lurking around, and those guys are just getting no pub. Like, I just feel like where Davante Adams is going right now is correct. That is where he should be going. But I don't know if it's necessarily overvalued, undervalued. He's just value. The other guys, like Cobb, and even Ty Montgomery, or potentially even one of the running backs when you look at it, whether it be Aaron Jones or your Jamal Williams guy, all those guys' value has been depressed right now because no one can figure it out. I think I would almost not take Adams here because I really like Doug Baldwin, who's like in the third, fourth round, who I think that doesn't project out the same in terms of upside, but in terms of market share could be super high, that I think you might get better value with some of the other Packers receiving options.
Yeah. Just quickly, I totally agree on Cobb. I think most sharp people's like most undervalued receiver on the whole board is Randall Cobb. So yeah, that's certainly a good point. I mean, you're not getting too much of a bargain on Davante Adams. You are getting a pretty big bargain on Randall Cobb.
When you look at Julio Jones at 14, Thomas 15, Allen 16, of course, Adams we mentioned, so we don't need to harp on him. But those three guys that come prior in terms of ADP, what's the highest that you're comfortable, Levy, taking any of those guys? I mean, are you shifting them ahead of some of the running backs that we spent so much time on, or do you like them about where they are?
No, I would start taking Julio, Michael Thomas around the 9 spot, maybe 8. I think that, people are so frustrated with Julio's touchdown rate. It's just like he leads the entire NFL and NFL history in yards per game. Every single year, he's among the leaders in yards per route run. I think you can hope at least that the Falcons scheme in year 2 of losing Kyle Shanahan can adjust somewhat and get back to what they were doing. But it doesn't matter. Like, Julio is so dominant. Michael Thomas has a really big market share. Certainly, Drew Brees' volume projects to continue to be relatively low to what we've seen in the past. But Michael Thomas is a baller for sure. So yeah, those two guys stand out to me as guys who should be going in the first round who are currently going in the second round.
I just like 88 receptions, over 1,400 yards, and people are like, Julio sucks. Can't have him. He's just brutal. Well, I know we kind of say this every year, and I don't know if I'm going to end up with a ton of Julio Jones shares, but I'm like Levy. I'm good with any of these receivers at the back end of the first round over that running back tier that we talked about at the onset, the Hunts and the Leonard Fournettes and those guys. Although we didn't quite talk about Delvin Cook too much yet, and he's just sort of intriguing on the whole. But I still think the safety of these receivers goes a long way in hitting that floor that you want to see every week. But I'm just waiting for this Julio Jones 17 touchdown season is just a big FU to everyone.
All right, let's talk Dalvin Cook then, because he's, going back to Minnesota. He's coming off the injury. It looked like he was headed, I don't know about to rookie of the year stature, but was having a great campaign before he went down for the year. He's right on the outside looking in terms of ADP for first round into the second round. But how do you compare him with some of those late first round backs, Mayo? Where do you put him as a guy that you'd be willing to reach for because you just like what he showed you last year and you think he fits in now a little bit better with the new QB situation in Minnesota? Obviously, it's worlds different than what we had last year.
I think that if you're going to take one of those running backs from that tier, that Dalvin Cook probably makes the most sense. Him or Melvin Gordon. At his best, Dalvin Cook's going to be probably a 3-down guy. He's going to handle the goal line work. Maybe they're just like, hey, Latavius Murray's still our guy. Let's use him around the goal line. That would be horrible for any sort of prospect with Dalvin Cook. But I'm going to throw this to Levy and ask you, because I've seen projections on Thielen, on Rudolph, on Diggs, on Cousins, on Cooks. They all can't be the best guy in the world, can they?
I feel that way about a lot of the Giants projections. Everybody has Saquon, Odell, Ingram, Shepard, and then they have Eli as the 19th round pick. I think that the Vikings offense is going to be really, really, really good this year. Dalvin Cook was on his way to an absolutely monster year last year. Here's concerns with Dalvin Cook. Latavius Murray is not good, but he is a solid backup. Dalvin Cook is coming off ACL injury. And also Dalvin Cook, the reason he slipped, or one of the reasons he slipped to the second round of the draft, of the real draft 2 years ago, was because his athletic profile is just really unimpressive. He was certainly extremely productive, but from an athletic testing perspective, he was not impressive whatsoever. So you have a guy who wasn't a great athlete to begin with, now coming off an ACL tear with a competent backup, with a lot of other options on the team to go to. So those would be arguments against Dalvin Cook. But man, if you watched him last year, if you saw the role that they had him in last year, it was just absolutely massive, and he looked really, really good doing it. I think there's maybe a little bit more risk than people are giving him credit for on Dalvin Cook right now, but I'd be hard-pressed to let him fall much further than 2.03, 2.04.
So a little bit later on in the round, at least seemingly, some of the other backs that we mentioned, whether it is Christian McCaffrey or Devontae Freeman, obviously then you've got LaShawn McCoy. Jerick McKinnon's in a much better, different situation, seemingly anyway, I think, with the Niners, with the Garoppolo-led offense, just to show you some of that bias, Levy, really high on San Fran and Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Those four guys, though, you can make the case that you sort of lump in together when it comes to draft position. Where do you put those guys? How do they battle one another, and how do they maybe supersede some of the receivers in the same range, Mayo?
I think if you don't get one of the first three picks, let's say you pick at pick number 4, which would be really good in this situation where you could take Antonio Brown, then you get one of these guys. And I think that these guys have just as likely of a chance as being a running back 1 as the tier that we talked about before that are going 10 picks earlier, your Melvin Gordons, your Fournettes. I look at Devontae Freeman, who's just good. The guy every single year is really, really good. No one wants to give him any credit. People just hate the Falcons, I think. Even last year, the 8 touchdowns, the guy missed some time and just continues to churn it out. And we saw last year with Shanahan leaving, they leaned on him a little bit more over Tevin Coleman. LaShawn McCoy is just an unsexy name. Who else is there really in Buffalo? They don't even have a quarterback. They're just going to be giving him the ball 30 times until he breaks down. So volume-wise, you're getting more volume than a lot of guys ahead of him. Guaranteed volume plus receptions. And then you look at Jerick McKinnon, who's in this new spot. There's unknown. Can he sustain holding up to the rigors of having the every down work? Maybe. Who knows? But we've already seen 2 backs really do well in the lead back in the Shanahan offense. If he gets involved in the receiving game like you hope he would, and they don't use Jerzek or Matt Breida or whoever it is as the primary receiving back, and they use Jerick and get him the goal line touches, he could vault all the way up. Christian McCaffrey is the only one where he's kind of separate where he's at, because we know what his floor is because he catches so many passes. I don't think he's going to get the goal line work. They bring in CJ Anderson, and that basically spells out that no, Christian McCaffrey is not going to be getting 18 carries a game, but 10 targets a game, that's certainly on the board. I really like this tier of running back over the guys going over 10 picks earlier. So I'm comfortable with all these guys, but for me, Devonta Freeman is kind of a standalone guy as being undervalued.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree on a couple of things.
So you're not sold, yeah.
the Buffalo Bills have a chance to be like
Awful.
the worst team in the league.
Agreed.
LaShawn McCoy has said that he would rather extend his career than get loaded up for 30 carries a game. He wants to play longer to add to his Hall of Fame resume. That's what he wants. When the Bills are 1-6 or 1-7, it's hard for me to see LaShawn McCoy going out there, giving it his all for 30 touches. And he's going to need a ton of volume given their offensive pieces. I mean, they have nothing literally around him. He's going to see 8-man boxes the entire time. LaShawn McCoy scares me. It's always a scary fade with LaShawn McCoy, just an awesome talent, and certainly will have the volume when his head is in it. Certainly scares me. Christian McCaffrey has been really, really bad, like not even close to average in terms of running the football. CJ Anderson is significantly better than Jonathan Stewart. So as Mayo mentioned, the CJ Anderson signing, I think, should have thrown a ton of cold water on Christian McCaffrey. And Christian McCaffrey also operates in the pass game in a lot of the same spots where DJ Moore, their first-round pick, likes to operate. Greg Olsen also shunned the Monday Night Football booth, I believe it was, to come back and run some of those intermediate routes or routes, whatever you want to say, for the Panthers. So, yeah, I'm not that high on this tier. My favorite guy in this tier is Jerick McKinnon, who I probably played way too much on DraftKings when he was on Minnesota as like a 4K guy who I know is going to get 5 or 6 targets and 7 or 8 rushes. Jerick McKinnon, obviously, it's a big joke in the fantasy football bubble. He's a spark freak and all this. It's true. He's one of the best athletes at his position, but look at some of the players who Kyle Shanahan at the running back position has turned into absolute stars. If you go back to Olandis Gary, you can go back to Mike Anderson. If you go back that far, you can go to Alfred Morris, obviously Devontae Freeman. All these guys have had absolute stone career years, just like the nut high year with Kyle Shanahan. And for Kyle Shanahan to go out and say, this is the actual running back I want, I'm going to go pay him and make him like the 8th or 6th or something crazy as highest paid running back in the league, says a lot to me. So I would be willing to take a shot on Jerick McKinnon over a lot of these other kind of more established names. And maybe that's a hot take, but, you know, for me, I'm always trying to catch guys on the upside rather than the downside, where I think that maybe LaShawn McCoy and maybe even Devontae Freeman could be showing up.
I think you're right about McCoy, but the thing is, like, you're probably going to, let's say, just if I haven't projected like 23 touches per game between carries and receptions. That could be on the low end for McCoy, but if he actually does want to take the pedal off the metal a little bit and the Bills allow him to do that, let's put him in that. I feel like that's baked into his ADP. Like, it's not that I'm super high on McCoy, but I don't see why McCoy 12 picks after Leonard Fournette is a bad pick.
So for season long, you have to think about when we win, right? Like we win in week 15, 16, right? 14, 15, 16. I'm very certain, or at least there's a good chance LaShawn McCoy will be checked out by then. I think for DFS, LaShawn McCoy early in the season, agree with you that he could be underpriced, especially if DraftKings uses a lot of ADP in their modeling for prices. So yeah, you know, when I know LaShawn McCoy is in it, when he has a good matchup, the volume is going to be there. I think he'll be a good play. I'd be real shaky about having him in season long for the end of the year.
Yeah, so I think that Freeman's my favorite guy from this year. I'm kind of with you on McKinnon. Like, hitting the guy on the upswing is huge, and if he really is in this role, then he's going to be an absolute monster. He could challenge top 5 in overall. Like, he could, if he gets all the work, and he is an actual 3-down back, he's basically just like the little brother of Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson, wouldn't he be?
Yeah, I think durability and size would be concerns, and probably not as good of a pass catcher. But yeah, you know, it's same kind of role. I think I'm always looking just for that role, and I think that's going to be the most important thing. And I do think McKinnon will have it.
See, everybody loves the Garoppolo offense. You just had to talk yourselves into it a little bit. All right, guys, receivers, because we've done plenty on the running backs for good reason. They're up high with the ADP, but Mike Evans and AJ Green, what are the deciding factors between those two huddled so close together in these drafts, Mayo?
I just think that you're looking at, although the injuries have been there with AJ Green, you're just looking at a better floor for AJ Green. And he's probably a better, just legit talent receiver as it goes along the line anyway. And the thing between him and Mike Evans right now, and we saw this with the Mike Evans stat regression last year, there's a lot of mouths to feed in Tampa Bay when it pertains to Mike Evans. And now they've brought back Cameron Brate, and they still have O.J. Howard. Like, you would always just expect them to go down and just chuck a high ball up to Mike Evans, and boom, he comes down with it. But when you have other gigantic bodies patrolling through the red zone, then you have other options to throw touchdown passes to if you're Jameis Winston. So don't love Mike Evans. I don't love AJ Green, but I would much prefer to have AJ Green.
Yeah, two guys who I've played a ton of and been high on, and probably to my detriment, certainly on Mike Evans. Like, there was one point last year on DK when Mike Evans was like in the 6s, and I was like, oh my God, like, how is this even possible? And then he goes out and gets 5 targets, and I just want to off myself. Like, it's just like really frustrating with Mike Evans last year. I think they need to make a concerted effort to get Chris Godwin on the field more, perhaps at the expense of Deshaun Jackson. But as Mayo said, I mean, certainly a lot of mouths to feed there. I mean, Mike Evans is just such a freak talent, though. I can't believe that he won't be featured more. I'd be willing to take a shot on him. And yeah, AJ Green, just always one of the best receivers in the league, going down the field, high pointing the ball. This Bengals team will play in bad weather. This Bengals team will see some tough defenses, a lot of tough defenses, actually, especially as Cleveland gets better. But yeah, you know, both these guys just bet on talent. You know, I'm always willing to bet on talent more than I am in season long than I would be in DFS. You know, in DFS, I'm looking straight for opportunity. In season long, I'm like, well, let me bet on talent and hope that Mike Evans and AJ Green kind of shake out their way to the top.
Yeah, like I mentioned the name earlier, Doug Baldwin. I am big on opportunity if that could be sustained opportunity. And where I see Seattle, frankly, not being all that great this season, I think that actually benefits Doug Baldwin. Like, you lose P. Rich, he takes a hike. You lose Jimmy Graham, he takes a hike. The defense got significantly worse. He's the next receiver off the board. He's ADP 27. Like, I would definitely take him over Mike Evans. That wouldn't even be a question to me.
Mayo, you think about this while I ask Levy, and we'll get back to Gronkowski just being the lone and first tight end. But in terms of that first 2 rounds, the top 24 guys that we've been covering over these couple of shows, is there a guy, Levy, that you think belongs in there, a guy that's missing that we haven't even hit on?
I think my favorite candidate for that would probably be Adam Thielen. But no, I think that the first 2 rounds look pretty solid to me. Doug Baldwin's certainly interesting. I do think that Seattle's defense will continue to deteriorate, and that will certainly help Doug Baldwin's volume projection. But yeah, no, I think that the first 2 rounds, to be frank, I'm looking at it almost for the first time now, and it looks pretty solid to me.
Mayo, you're Mr. Rankings. What do you think?
I would have Baldwin up there for sure. I just think a lot of these running backs are being overdrafted right now, except for like the Jarek, McCoy, Devonta Freeman, I think are a bit low in comparison to the other running backs. I think that's a good place for them. But I would just start moving receivers up the board a little bit and dropping these running backs back. But yeah, with Doug Baldwin, like, it's early to say, but I mean, he used to be so good in the red zone, and then they got Jimmy Graham, and then they started throwing to Jimmy Graham. Well, Jimmy Graham's not there anymore. Maybe we could see a touchdown spike plus a potential around 25-30% market share in that receiving game. Like, if it's going to be a crappy situation in Seattle, Russ Wilson's still good, and he has one guy he likes to throw to, and he's still there. So I just see that being a very clear sort of outlier. The value is good on where he's at right now. He's someone I would actually reach on.
All right, let's do a little Pats talk, specifically Gronkowski, before we do get out of here, because you guys can't contain yourselves. You can't wait to do it. It was a weird offseason for Gronkowski. First sort of teases the possibility of retirement after that Super Bowl loss. Only recently confirms that, yeah, I'm going to play, goes to mandatory camp, skips the rest of the voluntary OTAs. And within this offense, with a still, aging, reigning MVP, but 41, almost year-old Tom Brady, there's no Julian Edelman for the first quarter of the year. Brandon Cooks is gone. Danny Amendola is gone. Other guys, maybe health is a little bit in question. Gronkowski last year, the offense, he was still good. He cleared 1,000 yards, but the offense was, Mayo, a little bit down from what most people are used to because there was so much of the ball to be spread around. What do you expect from him this year? Do the numbers go back up a little bit with Brady maybe leaning on him more, especially at the start of this year, than he did in the past, to where he belongs right where he is in that top 24 ADP, or is that just a little too high for a tight end?
It's too high, especially because the gap between the top 3 tight ends I don't think is all that substantial. When you got Gronk, you got Kelsey, and you got Ertz, and Ertz is going, let's see here, 15 picks later? Give me Zach Ertz instead. Like, that just makes a far more sense to me. If you get the outlier Gronk, he plays 16 games, he dominates here, you probably win your league, and congratulations. But I just don't see that being very high on the range of outcomes. When you have a guy with a strong history of injury, and yeah, they might lean on him, but we've seen that. I mean, you can speak to this better than anyone. I mean, you're like best friends with everyone on the team. They don't like leaning on Gronk because they want Gronk for the playoffs, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you'd ideally like to bubble wrap the guy the entire season, but they haven't necessarily been totally operating based on that philosophy when he has been available. The thing is, a couple seasons ago, he basically wasn't available, only played half the year. And last year, they did not lean on him nearly as much. You're right about that. But whether it was keeping him healthy as compared to making sure guys like Cooks and some of the other guys they brought in during the year got the ball and sort of keeping everybody happy, that's another element of things. I could just see them, Levy, maybe you envision it differently. I could see them going in hard on Gronk to start the year because there isn't necessarily another guy in that offense that Brady's going to trust right out of the chute.
If you are going to project Tom Brady for over 4,000 passing yards, it's almost impossible not to project Rob Gronkowski for over 1,000 receiving yards, just given the talent that they have there. I love Chris Hogan. I think he's one of the best picks in season long right now, right there with Randall Cobb as well. But yeah, the rest of their pass catching options are just so limited. I think we'll see a lot of James White for sure, but beyond that, it's just so limited for Tom Brady to throw to. And everybody says, oh, Brady's just going to get it done. He's going to get it done. Well, then you should be taking Rob Gronkowski in round 2 if you believe that Tom Brady is going to get it done. So yeah, just such a dominant touchdown score and just an impossible matchup for people to match up with. And also from position scarcity perspective in season long, it's just after Mayo mentioned those top 3 tight ends, it can get really, really hairy after that. And when you start doing matchups, especially in shallower leagues, when you start doing matchups, say in a 10-team season-long league, it's just such a huge edge when everybody has really good running backs and everybody has really good wide receivers, but you're the only one that has a good tight end. It's just such a huge edge. So I think there's some strategy baked in and some game theory baked into Gronk's ADP too, which makes sense.
All right, but Mayo, you were basically, or Levy, sorry, you were basically doing the math right there. If you believe X, then Y. I mean, what do you believe in terms of Gronk and where he should be ranked and what his capability is this year?
Yeah, so Tom Brady, obviously, like even more so than Larry Fitzgerald or anybody like that, has broken every possible aging curve like to the max. So for me to say that Tom Brady, like, when are people going to be like, well, you know what, this is going to be the bad year for Tom Brady? It's not going to happen like that. It's going to be in the middle of the year. All of a sudden, it's just going to be like, well, Tom Brady doesn't have it anymore. I've seen nothing to suggest it will be this year. There's always going to be risk there when you have a quarterback who's what is he, Kaufman, now? 41? You were probably at his birthday party. What is he, like, 41 or 42?
Yeah, 41 in a couple of months, pal. I'll make sure I FaceTime you from there.
So yeah, I mean, that's just so absurd to be playing at this level at 41. So yeah, there's certainly risk there with Gronkowski. I probably wouldn't take him until like the mid-20s or so, or maybe a little bit later due to some of that risk. And he's certainly had a lot of injury risk in his career. But yeah, if you're a Brady truther, if you think he's found the actual fountain of youth by kissing his kids on the lips or whatever he does.
I think it's the avocado ice cream that's doing
it. then I think Gronk in the second round is fine.
I just think that I'm going to have rank for PPR purposes, which we're talking about. I'm going to have Ertz ranked at number 1. So if he's going 15 picks later, a round and a half later, no chance I ended up with Gronk here.
It's interesting. So would you, just to quickly wrap this up and then we'll get out of here, where are you splitting the difference? I mean, are you bumping up Ertz around, or are you just moving Gronk down a round and a half? How are you distinguishing?
Well, Kelsey's going at number 31. That seems to be about right. So I'd put Ertz kind of right between that. Then I would go Gronk second, then Ertz. I just think when we talk about too many mouths to feed type thing when it comes to Mike Evans, I think that could start to become a problem with a lot of these Kansas City guys with too much talent on one team and us not knowing exactly where everything is going to shake out, especially with the wrench being thrown at Patrick Mahomes now being the starter. We knew who Alex Smith liked. Do we know who Patrick Mahomes liked? Maybe not. Maybe it makes Travis Kelce so much better than everyone else. It's insane. I just know what I'm getting with Ertz. I'm getting the targets. I'm getting Carson Wentz coming back, and I'm not too worried about him. And I know that on the Eagles, it's going to be Elshon, but Ertz is probably still going to have the highest market share of anyone. Even if you include Aguilar into that mix, that Ertz is probably going to be that guy. He's just so safe from PPR perspective. But I think that when you think about him, like PPR versus standard league, he would be third for me in a standard league, but first in PPR because of the safety and floor that he brings. And Levy talked about it. Having a good tight end. If your tight end can score you, 13 to 14 points a week, you're dominating the field on the average that they're going to generate from there. And I just feel comfortable with that in PPR with Ertz. Now, Gronk could average like 20 points a game if he scores all the touchdowns. So you're leaving some of that upside on the board, but the way that I'm playing my teams, I'm deviating a little bit from what people are doing in the first and second round, that in the third round, if Ertz is still there, potentially in the fourth, depending on where he falls, like right now, ADP 39, depending on the league you're playing in, that could be the fourth round if he falls a little bit or slips a little bit. I wouldn't count on that, but I think that's a strategy that I would like to employ. I think getting one of those three guys is smart, so I would just take whoever's going last, and Ertz is that guy.
All right, well, that's a good segue. We can do Travis Kelce in round 3, Zach Ertz, maybe round 3, maybe even waits till our round 4 conversation. But, covered a lot. Obviously, these first couple of rounds, I encourage you to go back, listen, learn, because there's a ton of running back talk and where these guys should or shouldn't be slotted. There's a little bit of overvaluing going on with these backs, maybe a little undervaluing, as Mayo's talked quite a bit about as it concerns the receivers as well. But Mayo, I'll let you take us out of here.
All right, yeah, you can catch Levy on Twitter at Adam Levitan, and as host of the DFS Edge podcast, you should definitely go subscribe to that wherever you can download podcasts. You can catch Kaufman outside the bushes at Tom Brady's house, so that's always fun.
And on Twitter, stalking him and tweeting about his every move. I'm basically like Wahlberg's character in Ted 2.
You're on Twitter? Where are you at on Twitter?
Yeah, at Adam M. Kaufman tweeting about the Celtics. Thank you.
I thought that was like a Boston Russian hacked bot.
Yeah, it's just a bot. It's just an aggregating bot.
All right, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME on Twitter. Remember, subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience wherever you can download podcasts. And the video version, give a like. Help spread the word. It goes a long way. You can find previous and future episodes in the description for both the podcast and video. And the one thing that you cannot forget after all of this is that we're brought to you by Jägermeister. This summer, when you're having a beer, give your beer a shot of Jägermeister, an ice-cold shot of Jägermeister. Pick up your spirits. You can pick up your fantasy football game by listening to these, and that'll do it for the three of us. We're out of here, and we'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!